Hi everybody, Joe Locklear here. I want to show you a home that I just put under contract and I have for sale. I know I don't normally start showing you a Google Earth map. However, the reason I want to do it here is this property is actually waterfront. The property is located right here. It's a little neighborhood called Holmesdale. This is North Shore, Panama Park. Here's Lake Forest, near the intersection of 95 and Norwood Avenue. Now I want to zoom in a bit. A little more on the zoom. And what I want to show you is this is a tidal creek. This creek actually goes under 95 and continues to the west, but it comes right in here, and the property's right here on this creek. What you're seeing right here is a big oak tree that sticks out over the creek. Doesn't block the creek, but it kind of covers it so you can't see it from the air. And the creek just kind of winds around here, goes this way, right through here, and right out underneath the Tallulah Avenue Bridge into Trout River. Trout River is nice river. Lots of fish. In fact, the neighbors are telling me that they have caught fish in the backyard, the next door neighbor to this property. So one thing for sure is it's not navigable in a large boat, but it certainly would be navigable in a canoe or a kayak, and you could come right out through here into Trout River from your backyard basically and all the way out to the St. John's. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea of where the property is. Let's take a look at what the property looks like. Very, very neat property. This property is concrete block. As you can see, it has nice shutters on the front. The roof's in great shape. It has a single garage. Here's a little angle that'll show you the garage here that's on the left. It has two driveways, both paved. I'm parked in one right over here. And here is the driveway that goes right up into the garage. It's a single garage. Here's another look at the house. It does have a wheelchair ramp, which I would just leave in place. In fact, I wouldn't do a whole lot to this house. Certainly wouldn't change anything about it. It's very livable. In fact, you could move in right now and live in it. It's not a rehab at all. Basically has a little deferred maintenance, but not a tremendous amount. Again, it's concrete block and it has aluminum soffits. This is a house across the street. I'm showing you that just to show you that it is a nice neighborhood. It's a great rental area. It's kind of secluded back in here, one way in, one way out. Not a lot of traffic. Seems to have nice neighbors. I met 2 or 3 of them while I was here taking my pictures. Met the one next door and they told me about the fishing in the backyard. Here's a close-up of the house. Now this is looking out in the backyard. It's hard to see through here, but there is a creek right here behind these trees. Okay, now I'm standing back by the creek and looking back at the house. Here is the creek. This is going to the west toward Interstate 95. And this, it's hard to see here because like I say, there's this giant oak tree that just kind of leans over here. And the creek runs right through here, and this is the way you would go out to Trout River. It was fairly high tide when I was there. I haven't been there at low tide, but I know on the higher tides you certainly could get back up in there in a canoe or a kayak right from the backyard. Here is the sea-doo that the people that moved out left. By the way, this is not a foreclosure. I'm buying this from a private individual. Here is the brand new Carrier air conditioning, a very, very nice unit. As you can see, even the paint's in good shape, just needs a little bleaching here, a little light pressure washing with some bleach, and that'll be fine. Here is the garage. This is the side entry door. I'm standing with my back to the overhead door. Right here behind this, this is your dryer connection here. And you have a washer connection here. One thing that's neat is all of this, everything in this house, the electrical's really done nicely. This is all in conduit. You can tell it was done by a professional electrician. It has a new electric service, as you can see. It's on a raised mast. This is the way it's supposed to be done. 200 amps coming in, and this is the latest code that requires your main breakers to be out here in this exterior box. This shows you the soffit and the fascia, which is aluminum and vinyl, and the basic good condition of the house. This is when you step right in. Here's the front door coming in, and this is a little front porch. I would paint it a different color. It's kind of dark, but it is air conditioning, which is nice. Now you're stepping into the main house. Excuse me. There's an L shape living and dining area. These floors are in great shape. All I would do to them is mop them and then put some mopping glow on them. Very, very good shape. This is looking into the kitchen. I've got the back door open, looking out the back door. Now I'm standing in the dining room and looking into the living room and out onto the front porch. This is the kitchen. I'm actually looking through a pass-through that goes into the dining area. Nice countertops, new cabinets, new ceramic tile on the backsplash, and built-in dishwasher. I'm now in the dining room and I'm looking through the pass-through into the kitchen, looking at the same area that you just saw. Now I'm standing at the back door. This is the right side of the kitchen. You have a newer refrigerator in great shape and a range. They might need a little cleaning and maybe some new pans, but that's it. They look very, very nice, and they're fairly new. The home needs paint, as you can see, especially in the kitchen and bath, because it had gloss paint. Someone went over it with flat paint and it's peeling. You need to use a primer over the excuse me, a little scraping primer over the glossy paint, and then repaint at least the kitchen and the bath. And I probably would just paint the entire interior. This is such a nice home with these hardwood and tile floors. I think it deserves a good paint job. The dishwasher, again, there's a close-up of the range. There is the electric service, which is fairly new. Here is the refrigerator. It needs a little cleaning, but not much. Here is the new air conditioner. It's a very expensive Carrier 13-SEER Puron unit. So this is the latest. I would probably put a little closet around it with a louvered door, but you don't have to for a rental. I've seen lots of them left open. Here is the bath. This looks bad, but it's just peeling paint because, again, they didn't prime it properly when they painted it. Around the shower enclosure, just needs a little cleanup and some caulking. It's not bad. Spray a little bleach on there and a little caulking, and you're fine to go. And the tub's good. It just needs to be cleaned up a little bit. Here's another picture. It has a nice bath stack-up topper. The toilet's decent. By the way, the water and the power are on at this house. I was able to turn on the air, ice cold air. All the water has fantastic pressure. I'm sure it would have to have been repiped to have that kind of pressure. Built-in medicine cabinet. Here is the tub again, showing you the area that just needs to be cleaned and caulked. Close up of the vanity sink, the pedestal sink, which looks fairly new. As you can see, these floors just need a good mopping and some mopping glow, and they'll look like brand new. Very nice hardwood floors. That was one bedroom. Here you're in the second bedroom. All three bedrooms look about the same. We won't spend a lot of time describing them. They're decent sized bedrooms. This is one thing I really like about the house. This is an Art Deco brass plate with the crystal knobs. These are very common. This is original to this house. These are 2-panel solid pine doors, and I'd save every one of them. You need a couple of replacement knobs, but they're available at Home Depot or Lowe's, and I believe all the Art Deco plates are there in place. That's the thermostat. Nice ceiling fan in the living room. Here's a little close-up of the kitchen sink. It's extremely nice there. Inside of the dishwasher, and again here's a close-up of the air conditioner unit. Now that pretty much finishes up that. Again, you're right here on the creek. Let's take a look at the numbers on this particular property. Here's a remodeling estimate and budget worksheet. Again, this is not really a major rehab at all. I wouldn't even call it a rehab, just some deferred maintenance. So here we have the yard work. I've got about $200 in for that because I'd want to cut those little bushes and stuff down that are back there along the creek and open that up so it would look nice. It'd be a beautiful view if it was just opened up a little bit. Pressure wash, a little bit of outside touch-up paint. The storm door in the front just needs replacing. That's going into the porch. That's not the main entry door, just the porch door. There's a little bit of wood on the eaves that needs to be replaced. It's not from the roof leaking, it's just from being there a while, just on the back side, one small area, and then just a little bit of siding along one area. Okay. Vinyl squares at the porch and the bath. That's on the interior. There are vinyl squares in the bath and in the entry porch. Those just need to be replaced. A couple of them are broken, and you could just patch a couple in, but I would just replace them, make it all look nice and fresh. The water heater looked old. I don't know that it's bad, but I put in some money just in case it is. Interior paint, about 16 hours, which is $429 labor, about 300 materials for the paint, and that's about $728. I put in some money for some light fixtures. I don't know that you need them that bad, but I think some of them were older looking, so put some money in for there. And I always put some money in for miscellaneous plumbing and electrical. I didn't see any that it needed, but just in case. A final cleaning. There's actually a cleaning lady that lives next door. She's the one that told me about the fish she's caught in the backyard. She actually caught a 21-inch redfish right there in her backyard. Okay, this is just the caulking around the tub that I mentioned, and then I put $500 in here just in case there's something we missed. So this is a very liberal estimate on what it would cost, and I'm showing the cost at around $3,700. Now that would be the cost if you hired people to go in and do it. If you wanted us to go in and do it as a general contractor, we mark up cost 20%, and you could have it done by a professional, which we are, at about $4,476. Let's say about $4,500 on the remodeling. Now let's look and see what the numbers look like on this property. This property is available to you for a purchase price of $36,800. I'm showing the rehab cost at about $4,500, and let's assume the closing cost to be about $1,000. I'm thinking the ARV, this property is not going to appraise super high, but there are no sales on the water in there that I can find, so there are basically no comps. So I'm just pulling this out of the air. I'm saying about $55,000. It may be more, but I feel real comfortable with that amount. The rent, it's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath with a garage, with a front porch, and it's on the creek. I would say about $800 a month. I'm doing this pro forma here the first time, assuming that you bought it for cash. I've got a 2% rent and expense increase per year and a value increase per year of about 2% for the purpose of the pro forma. This is simply an inflation factor. Okay, you would be in this property if you hired us to repair it at about $42,300. That's about 76.9% of the total value. That's an excellent ratio. Okay, that's if you refinanced it, but we're not looking at that in this pro forma. So just you be in it at $42,800. Your monthly cash flow would start out at about $537 a month. By year 5, it should be at $593 a month. Now this is net spendable, and year 10 about $679 a month. Let's look in a little more detail here. This is the breakdown that created the numbers that we just saw. I've got 5% in for vacancy, 5% in for reserves and maintenance. I've got 10% in here to pay a manager. And then I've got the real estate tax there, $53 a month, and the property insurance estimated about $50 a month. That puts you in a situation here. Let's say you collect $800 rent. Here are all of your expenses: maintenance, vacancy, taxes, insurance, and management. That leaves you a net operating income of about $537 a month. And since you have no payment because you paid cash, your return is $537 a month. if you take your total investment of 43.3 and you divide it, or you divide the return into it, you have an annual cash flow of 15% cash on cash. That is a fantastic cash return, especially since you have equity. And if you add the 2% annual appreciation that we're expecting, puts your IRR at about 17% cash on cash. If you have about $43,000 that you're not earning 17% on, you should call me in the next 5 minutes, because this is a fantastic deal. It's waterfront. It's going nowhere but up. It's a concrete block house with a good shingle roof. Everything's there. It is an excellent, excellent cash investment. If you look over here, now this is where the inflation comes into account. Here's your appreciation at 2%. And you know, we've had 5% historically, but let's be conservative and say it's going to be 2. Here is how your cash flow increases, and here is how your value increases. So at the end of year 10, you should be making about $679 a month. So your annual cash flow goes up and up. Okay, and that's because your expenses and your rent go up at the same value, but the expenses are only about 20% of the rent. Okay, what we're going to do now, let's go back and let's assume you refinance this. Let's put about 3.5% in here for closing cost. Then we have to go back to the first page here, and let's put the loan to value. Let's assume you're going to borrow about 75% loan to value. Okay, that puts your investment at only, your final investment at only $3,975. That would be the money that you would leave in this property. You would still have a cash flow after making your payment of $321 a month to begin with. That is $321 a month on basically a $40,000 loan. That is fantastic, fantastic return. I could mark this property up a lot more than I am and probably sell it to a hedge fund, but I'm keeping it to a low markup. I want one of my customers to get a really good deal on this one. Let's look at the breakdown. Up here, we do need to take this interim and closing cost, and we're going to increase it to about $3,500. Now I'm assuming that you don't use your own cash and refinance. Now I'm assuming that you let me get you the cash to buy this and to renovate it. You'd put about $4,000 into the deal. I can go to one of my private lenders, get you the money to buy it, do the repairs, have the repairs done in about 3 weeks, and then at that point you can go and refinance it and get a new loan and pay off this existing loan. So we didn't change anything else in here except we added, assuming you're going to go refinance it, get a 75% loan to value loan, pay 3.5% closing cost on that loan and about 4.5% annual interest for a 30-year note. That puts your net spendable income after management at $321. Now when I quote these $300 plus cash flows, I'm quoting them with you paying for a manager. If you manage it yourself, you can add another $80 to that, puts you at a $400 cash flow if you finance this. Just a fantastic deal. What is your return? It's ridiculous. Your return cash on cash is 59%. And if you take the appreciation into account, just the 2% a year that we're expecting, that is a 61% internal rate of return. Your total capital that you've got left in it's about $6,400. You could go back over here, borrow a little more. Let's say if you go to an 80% loan, and that will put your investment at only $3,700, but it brings your cash flow down from 322 to 306. Spendable, again, almost 400 if you decide that you want to manage it for yourself. Okay, so that is the property. Those are the numbers. This is a fantastic, fantastic deal, and I'm sure it's going to sell probably within a few minutes of people seeing this video. If you want to reserve this property, I need a $1,000 binder. That's what I'm paying the seller. This is a private seller. It's not a bank. You can call me, Joe Locklear, at 904-813-9526. That's area code 904-813-9526. 26. If I don't answer, leave a message. I'll call I'll return all these calls in the order that I received them, and the first ones that call will get priority. Okay, that is the property. Oh, by the way, you can email me at joelocklear@gmail.com if you want to reserve this property. Again, I'm Joe Locklear. I appreciate you looking, and I'll see you on the next property.